the customer service Kitemark, it did help organisations provide a good level of customer service. But in order to provide service excellence, the step up from that, as I say, is more focus on leadership. So it's making sure that not just one person is responsible for making sure they deliver good customer service, that they actually create a culture of service excellence, culture of ownership, engagement, accountability, and that is led from the top level management right through, and that their employees kind of live and breathe that service excellence culture.
You are listening to The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards, with Matthew Childs and Cindy Parrakill.
Hello, this is Matthew Childs and welcome to The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards. Now, the voice you heard at the top of the episode was that of BSI's Julie Walker, talking about the BSI Kitemark for service excellence. Organisations who achieve this Kitemark are proving they are putting customers first and consistently providing a service experience that meets their expectations. Originally known as the British Standard Mark, the BSI Kitemark was first registered as a trademark in June 1903. Now used by organisations around the world, Kitemark certification confirms that a product or service's claim has been independently and repeatedly tested by experts, meaning consumers can have trust and confidence in products and services that are BSI Kitemark certified. This episode of The Standard Show is my conversation with Julie Walker and also with fellow BSI colleague Chris Parry, all about the BSI Kitemark for Service Excellence, why it was developed, how it works, and the benefits it offers for both organisations and consumers.
This is Cindy Parrakill here, with a reminder that you can rate, review, and subscribe to The Standard Show wherever you get your podcasts. And you can get in touch and find and follow us on social media too. All the details are in the show notes.
So, Julie Walker is a global scheme manager at BSI, responsible for the development and management of several BSI Kitemark schemes, innovation management, inclusive service, and service excellence. And Chris Parry is a business development manager at BSI, working with and supporting BSI clients on around 10 Kitemark schemes, including for service excellence. I started by asking Chris for his personal perspective on the crucial role the Kitemark plays for both organisations and consumers.
For me, it starts before my time with BSI. I think it's a good place to start about what a Kitemark does. So I didn't really know a huge amount about BSI before I started, but one thing I always remember is I wouldn't buy a fire alarm unless it had a Kitemark on that fire alarm. Same with a cycling helmet and other products like that. So that's really where BSI sit. It's giving the customer, the end user, if you like, that trust in an organisation's product or service. And really the Kitemark shows that organisations have gone that extra mile and really pushed themselves. Some Kitemarks are mandated by regulators and the like, and a lot of Kitemarks that I look after tend to be a nice to have. You know, we would really like as an organisation to push ourselves and go further than we have to do. And that's where the consumer promise side of things comes in. So the Kitemark itself, we're very lucky. You know, we do talk about the Kitemark a lot, and we do look after the Kitemark. So the Kitemark is this year is 121 years old. So it's one of the oldest marks of trust globally that you'll find. And the reason why we're lucky is because we can create Kitemark schemes. So, for example, service excellence, which we'll go into in a bit, but that has 3 standards that we assess an organisation to, plus extra test measures. So we're building a really robust scheme when we're looking at Kitemarks that really do test organisations. So they're not the Kitemarks, regardless of which of the hundreds of Kitemarks that an organisation goes for, they're not easy. It is really helping organisations become better, provide better services, provide better products. And as I said, we're lucky because we can build these schemes ourselves because we essentially own that kite mark.
Just unpack that for me a bit there, Chris. You talked there about a scheme. So kite marks are not standards, but made up of a number of different standards.
Yeah, so it can be, there can be just one standard involved. There can be several standards involved. When we look at inclusive service, is a really good example of where we've used the scheme to help different sectors. So inclusive service Kite Mark helps organisations work with their vulnerable consumers and helps them put processes in place to make sure they don't receive a detrimental service because of their vulnerability. So what we're able to do with Kite Mark is build different versions of that Kite Mark depending what sector the organisation is in. So when I mentioned test measures earlier, the inclusive service Kite Mark, we have 4 variations of it: one for water companies, one for energy, one for finance organisations, and then we have a general scheme for everybody else. And each of those schemes has a different set of test measures which are geared towards whoever is regulating them. So basically, water would look at the test measures, look at what are asking that water company to do, plus we assess them to the international standard 22458, which is based around consumer vulnerability. Same with finance, we have the standard as like the base, and then the test measures look at what the FCA are asking their regulated firms to do. So it's as I said, it's pushing an organisation to go further than just what they've been asked to do. It's where they really want to go and what they want to do and how they want to help that customer. And these standards, these schemes, really help an organisation do that.
So, Julie, Chris talked there about the sort of the different Kite Mark schemes, and we're going to come on to service excellence Kite Mark, all built around sort of focusing on customer service. But I want to start by asking you about the sort of the trends and developments here. Now, it seems a daft question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Just how important is it for organisations to focus on customer service?
So a lot has changed over the last few years. Back 2 or 3 years ago, customers were really happy with just getting a good level of customer service, but a lot's changed since then. So we've had things like the pandemic. What happened is we had to change, customers changed, and organizations had to change and have to shift their behaviors, their expectations, and they're kind of forced to go online really quickly because we were all obviously at home, couldn't go out. So a lot of people were starting to go online and use online services. They maybe didn't want to, didn't enjoy it, but it's actually shown that customers do want to do more online now. They're actually quite enjoying it. Some statistics I've seen show that over the last 12 months, 92% of customers actually prefer to self-serve rather than speaking to a company or agent. And this has had not just an effect on consumers as well, it's also the businesses. So they've had to really adapt quickly to change how they serve customers, ensure that their staff are better trained, and also not forgetting your traditional methods, because that's where you'll probably find they'll have the more complex queries from customers. So it's really important that with this quick move to online services, and customers are actually saying that they want a more tailored service. They want a quick response. They want to do things really quickly, and they don't really want to pay much more money for it either. So if you look at a lot of research we've been doing, so the UK customer service index scores, they've seen a drop over the last couple of years from 76.6 as a customer satisfaction score down to 76. And we've seen some research across not just the UK, across other countries, where customer service scores are showing that customers are not happy, things are getting worse. And the only way to change that is for organizations to put more focus in what they're doing and how they're providing that service to customers so that they can improve it, not only for their online services, but generally so that a customer can go to them and have confidence that they're going to have a great experience You probably heard a lot of times if you speak with an organization or deal with an organization, it's not what they do throughout the whole of your experience. If right at the end you walk away from whether you've bought a product or you've been making a complaint, if you walk away and the last conversation is not very good, that's all you're going to remember. You're not going to remember any of all the great stuff they've maybe done in the middle. So it's really important that organizations focus on like start to finish customer journey, which is providing a much, much better level of customer service.
So, Judy, tell me then, this service excellence Kitemark, what is it? How does it work?
So, Service Excellence Kitemark actually stemmed from a Kitemark that we originally had, which was Customer Service Kitemark. And as Chris mentioned, these schemes are made up of sometimes multiple standards. Customer Service Kitemark was actually made up of two standards. BS 8477, which was a code of practice for customer service, and that provided a framework for good customer service strategy and culture, and processes, and also ISO 10002, which is your complaints management. So it was like complaints handling principles, your policy, responsibility and authority, and effectiveness for complaint resolution. Because of all the research we did, we realized that obviously we need, as much as the landscape had changed for customer service and people were expecting more tailored service and like better, like customer delight almost, we realized that we needed to also move with the times. So we decided to develop this into Service Excellence Kitemark. So we've kept the same two standards, BS 8477 and BS ISO 10002, but we've also included another standard, which is BS ISO 23592, which is the Service Excellence Principles and Models. And what that does is that the first two standards that I mentioned, they really form what you would say is the foundations of good customer service. And what 23592 does is that raises the bar to provide that toolkit or framework for organizations to go that extra mile and actually start providing service excellence.
Now, actually, Chris, a key part of the standards world is regular review and revision of standards. Obviously, we've got an evolving Kitemark here. We've looked at the market and said, actually, we need to do something a bit different here to respond to sort of customer needs and organisations' desires to provide an even better level of customer service. Just talk to me about how often this takes place within the Kitemark part of the standards world. How often do the reviews take place?
There's no set review. We're just fully aware of what's happening within the world. Let's be honest. We are an organisation that is there to help other organisations and essentially the end users as well. So we've done quite a few recently, actually. It's funny you should ask. So as Julie's mentioned, this one has transitioned because we've looked at the trends within the market and we've seen that customers are asking for more and requesting more. Therefore, there's a need for this. When we talked earlier about inclusive service Kitemark, that actually started out as a British standard, and we did a verification scheme to that. And then because of everything that had happened globally with regards to the pandemic and the cost of living crisis, we decided that actually we would like to make that into a Kitemark scheme because there was a transition from the old British standard into an international standard for vulnerable consumers. Therefore, we felt it really needed that extra, as we were saying, that push for organisations to really prove what they're doing. And also, when we look at things like innovation management, there was an old guidance document that we use, which was 56,002. Now the new standard has been released, 56,001. We're actually transitioning that scheme as well. But we are constantly looking as an organisation to see what the trends globally are or what we feel the trends will be. So we'd like to get ahead of things. And then also being very aware of any changes with standards or new standards that come out, like the Service Excellence standard, where it could actually bolster and help improve a scheme and ultimately what an organisation is doing with regards to their customer journey.
So, Julie, Chris mentioned there that sort of transition to the from a customer service kite mark to a service excellence kite mark. What do we mean here? What does it mean for an organisation to go through this transition and move from customer service to service excellence?
So the main difference is obviously the customer service kite mark. It did help organisations provide a good level of customer service, but in order to provide service excellence, the step up from that, as I say, is more focus on leadership. So it's making sure that not just one person is responsible for making sure they deliver good customer service, that they actually create a culture of service excellence, culture of ownership, engagement, accountability, and that is led from the top level management right through, and that their employees kind of live and breathe that service excellence culture. There's a lot of more focus on their strategy, making sure that it's aligned, it's customer centric, and actually forming that strategy is co-designed and influenced by not just them as an organization, but their stakeholders, their employees, and importantly their customers as well. That they do a lot of benchmarking, and there's a lot more around measurement and management of information. There's more focus on the employees as well. Obviously, a good organization providing service excellence means that they have employees that just love working for them and want to give that excellence of service to their customers. So it's things like recognition and a real openness to challenges or innovation, so that employees feel that they can put their ideas forward and make improvements within the business. And ultimately, you're talking the customer delight. So most important thing is deepening that relationship with their customers, understanding the customer's needs, a lot more around customer journey mapping. So that means that they look at all the touch points throughout their organization from the minute someone contacts them or buys a product right through to when they get the product, and potentially if they have to complain. And throughout all those touch points, making sure that there's a positive experience for the customer. And if there isn't, then they've got an action plan in place to look at how they can improve that, so that that journey is excellent right the way through for the customer. So with customer service Kitemark, it didn't have as much of this focus that I've just mentioned, but obviously service excellence. All of this stuff's really important to give that good customer experience.
So, Julie, tell me about who is this service excellence kite mark for, and why would they do it? What are the benefits of an organisation going through this process?
So the kite mark scheme itself really is, any organization can take this up. I mean, it could be from any sector, energy, water, finance. It could be a small organization. It could be airports, hotels, really anybody that has customers and want to make sure that they're, do things to improve the experience they provide their customers, can take up this scheme. And I would say some of the benefits that they would find, apart from the most important thing, which would be improving the service to their customers, that if they're, it could set them aside from other organizations in their sector. If they could say they've been assessed by a third party organization against a really robust and challenging kite mark scheme, which shows they're providing service excellence, it could make the difference to them in their market. It would to demonstrate trust for their customers to say that they have been assessed and are providing a really truly service excellence culture, and that it might help them get more customers and actually retain customers, and also retain their staff as well, because by having that culture, their staff are more likely to want to work there and stay there. And it could help if they're a regulated business, in making all these changes and providing an excellent service, prevent them from any reputational damages from complaints or fines. They're just a few benefits, but ultimately, it will be the customers that they're helping.
Standards affect all of us every day, wherever we go, whatever we do. By defining good practice, they help people and organizations to do things better. Each year, standards bodies publish thousands of standards, and we are looking for more people like you to join our community of standards makers. We welcome applicants from all fields, backgrounds, and career stages. Our goal is a simple one: to have a balance of views around the table. By becoming a standards maker, you could help to improve the way things are made and done, like creating healthier and more inclusive workplaces, developing higher quality healthcare systems, making advances in AI governance, or accelerating climate action, and many, many others. So, if you want to make a difference and shape the world through standards, start your standards making journey now. Details of how to do so are in the show notes.
Now, exploring standards journeys is something we are very passionate about. It's been at the heart of the Standards Show since the very beginning. In this episode, I spoke with Julie and Chris about the journey of a Kitemark. In this case, a journey that had started as customer service to one that has grown and developed to become service excellence. To wrap up our conversation, I wanted to delve into their own personal standards journeys. And so I did, starting with Chris.
It started just over 6.5 years ago. As I've mentioned before, I've always known of the Kitemark. I've grown up with the Kitemark, but I never envisaged a career with regards to standards. I've come from telecommunications, chemical background, and then I'll be honest, stumbled across BSI with regards to working for them. I genuinely believe this, and you might be able to hear the smile on my face, but it was the best decision I've ever made. I'm very, very lucky. I know I'm one of a select few who loves coming into work. I love my colleagues that I work with. I love the organisation. I love the customers. The variation of customers is very, very vast, and sort of keeps me on my toes. And I get to work with wonderful people like Julie, obviously. But yeah, sort of stumbled into it. Had an interview with somebody who's still in the business, who I still report directly to. Very, very supportive organisation and people. As I said, it come from a completely different background, but I've always worked in the standards and the schemes that we're talking about today. I've always sort of worked with those. So as I said, about 10 different kite marks around sort of consumer promise. So yeah, just absolutely loved my role, and really enjoying it, and said it's the best decision that I've ever made to come to the standards organisation. I still get very surprised on a daily basis about some of the standards that we offer as an organisation, and some of the kite marks that we offer and the schemes that we offer, but in a good way, in a very good way. And I think what I love about this is the way that BSI adapts to current trends, or tries to get ahead of current trends and provide something to organisations to help people in the long run. That's something that I'm really proud of. I think the inclusive service kite mark that we've got at the moment, I think we have an effect on around about 45, 50 million plus people within the UK, because of the organisations that have taken it up. And I'm really proud to say that work for BSI. Really proud. It's a nice conversation to have when you're at a party. It's difficult to describe to people what I do, but it's a nice conversation to have, and it's nice to work for an organisation you feel does make a difference to the world, as cheesy as that may sound.
I think you've had a pretty good go there, Chris. And Julie, it's you've got to top that now. So Chris definitely stumbled in to standards, is now being completely seduced. But how about you? What's been your standards journey? When did it start for you, and where are you now?
Oh God, my journey started probably a lot longer ago. That doesn't make sense, but it was a long time ago. So I was probably about 2015. So I used to work in the energy industry for many, many years, and I was leading up all the vulnerability teams and strategy in my old company. And as part of that, we had to certify against BS 18477, which was the old British standard. And so my journey started there, really. So I absolutely loved that standard. I loved seeing the changes that it made in the organization and the way it really transformed our culture into really supporting customers in vulnerable situations. And then as part of that, I ended up working on the committee for BSI knowledge solutions to develop the standard that we have now, the ISO 22458, working with delegates from all across the world to develop this standard. So that was really amazing, and kind of seen it from both sides, really, that having to implement it as a client, then working on the development of a standard. And then 2 years ago, the role came up to actually manage that scheme as well as others. And I didn't imagine I would ever change the role I was going to do when I was in energy, but it just felt like a calling to me. And like Chris, I've absolutely loved being with BSI. It has been the same best decision I've ever made. It's an amazing organization for the exact same reasons. Their ultimate goal is to improve society. Um, through helping organizations through the use of standards, which is amazing. And more you see so many amazing standards coming out that help people from menopause to low carbon technology, and the ones I manage, which is inclusive service excellence. So yeah, it's been quite a long journey, and I've seen a lot of different sides of the standards and absolutely love it. Yeah, totally blows my mind seeing all these standards that we have available.
Our thanks to Julie Walker and Chris Parry for speaking to us about the BSI Kitemark for Service Excellence for this episode of The Standards Show, and also for sharing their standards journeys. Now, if you want to know more about the BSI Kitemark for Service Excellence, or about how to get involved in standards, then check out the links in the show notes. And the show notes are also where you can find details of our socials and all the other ways to get in touch with us here on The Standards Show.
You have been listening to an episode of The Standards Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards, with Matthew Childs and Cindy Parakill.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.